Okay, let's see. Glad this is recording. Uh-huh. All right, looks like mine has slowed down a bit. I'd like you to have that in-class essay document up. I know I asked you to have about 3 tabs going, Moodle, the in-class essay, and your notes document, but please have the in-class essay document up, and we'll see if I can actually load mine. Maybe, maybe not. I'll give a little introduction while we're waiting for my document to load. On Friday, you'll take an in-class essay. In-class essay means that you will start typing on your essay when the bell rings, and you will stop when the second bell rings. You are not allowed to take it home and work on it afterward. You are not allowed to pre-write it. You will have a set amount of time in which you write this essay. I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. We need a final sort of test for Anne Frank, and I can't stand multiple choice tests. So instead, you're writing one big essay. I want to see how much you learned about your character and characterization and how you can use evidence. But more importantly than that, in the future, pretty much all of you will take the ACT, because Ohio students going into college usually take the ACT. Even if you decide to go to a coastal school, one that prioritizes the SAT, you'll probably cover your bases and take both of them. The ACT includes an essay assignment. That essay assignment is a 30-minute essay. From the time you open the book to the time pencils are down, you have 30 minutes to write an essay. The essay has to be 5 paragraphs long, has to have a developed introduction and conclusion, 3 distinctly different developing paragraphs. It must use rhetorical devices like shifts and voice. It must use interesting and varied transitions. It's a lot. It's always a persuasive essay, which means you're arguing something, and it always has something to do with high school age life. Dress codes, curfews, school newspapers, extending the school day, that sort of thing. But you have 30 minutes to do it. You'll be in a room and you will not know the prompt ahead of time, and you'll just have to go. So you might wonder how possibly anybody could succeed on something like that. Through training on how to write an essay in class. And if you've never done it before, great, it starts now. And throughout high school, your high school teachers will give you in-class essay assignments, and sometimes you won't know the prompt ahead of time. I used to do that with my sophomores. I would give them in-class essays where they would not know the prompt, they would not be able to prepare, and they would have 42 minutes in which to write a full essay. You, on the other hand, will have 45 minutes, and you will have plenty of preparation. But that's what this is all about. This is your final test for Anne Frank, and it's an in-class essay, and you're going to have tons of prep work. So let's talk about what you have to do. Look at this document now. Look at the assignment that I'm trying to scroll down to. It says you will write a 4-paragraph essay exploring the character assigned to you during our reading of the Diary of Anne Frank. Ethan, which character were you assigned? Okay, Ethan is writing an essay about Peter Van Dan. Amira, which character were you assigned? Mrs. Van Dan? Okay, so Amira is writing one about Mrs. Van Dan. Alyssa, how about you? Okay, so Alyssa is writing the same topic as Ethan. They're both writing about Peter Van Dan. You will write the same essay as 1 or 2 other members of the class, but you will not write the same essay as most of the other members of your class. I want you to give me a profile of that character. Ethan will assume that I've never read the Diary of Anne Frank, and he will introduce Peter to me. He will say, this is what Peter's like, these are his dominant characteristics, and here's the evidence from the play that supports my claim. That's it. Ethan should know Peter at this point, and he should have a number of notes about different pieces of evidence throughout the play that he could use for such an essay. In other words, you already have a lot of this prep work done. So 45 minutes to write an essay about your character. Let's look at the rules. And by the way, at any point during this, if you wish to stop me and ask questions, feel free to. Rules. You may use notes you and your group have developed over the course of the reading, but that is the only document you may use in addition to your essay document. When I walk around and check out what you're doing, I expect you to have your essay document open that you're typing into. The only other document you're allowed open is the Anne Frank notes document. Ethan, may I use yours as an example? Okay. Of course, here I go trying to, oh, hey, that loaded pretty quickly. And find Ethan's. There we go. So if you're not sure which document I'm talking about, you should have it open on your desktop right now. And I'm opening Ethan's just to show you what the document looks like, to remind you. Okay. Coming up. Almost there. I'm scrolling down because Ethan's notes, okay, good. Remember that the end of this document asks you to keep notes on your character, and Ethan has notes. Oh, look at that. He even has a page reference. Page 843 shows the shyness of Peter's character. So if Ethan decides, my essay will be at least in part about how Peter is shy, he now has a page reference for evidence. He could possibly even pull a quotation. He's on the way to being able to write this essay. And then he has some more. Oh, and he even has some material about the actual Peter in history, Peter Van Pels. But we're only talking about the play. So this evidence right here about Peter Van Dam, the literary character, will be relevant. He already has multiple page references. Ethan is on his way to being able to write this essay. But he will also have time, as all the rest of you will, to develop some more evidence with your group to add to this. This is the document you're allowed to use. So when Ethan is writing his essay on Friday, he's going to be bouncing back and forth between his notes document and his essay document. And on the ACT, you would have no notes of any kind, but this is how I'm providing you with that preparation. Yes, Tyler? That's correct. That's correct, which means if you have notes somewhere else, you will need to copy and paste them into there. That's just my way of assuring that, or ensuring that you are not using something you shouldn't be using. Because remember, I have access to that document from everybody. You may use your textbook. Warning, if you don't bring your textbook, you're not using your textbook. So make sure to bring your textbook on Friday. No sharing of textbooks, and I will not provide one for you. You may write portions of this essay in advance, but you may not merely copy and paste. You must write originally. I would like to talk to you about the balancing act that I'm trying to strike here. I don't want to terrify you or kill you on a grade. That means I want you to be able to prepare this essay. I want you to walk into class on Friday saying, yeah, I know what I'm writing about. I'm prepared. I have my notes. I'm good to go. But I also don't want you to pre-write it. So let's say that Gabe's a hard worker and prepares and often thinks about assignments outside of class. So it wouldn't be uncharacteristic for Gabe to walk in with a few paragraphs of this essay already written and in his Google document. And then all he does is copy and paste. And after about 20 minutes of class, he's finished with his essay, and it's really good. What's the problem with that? Gabe. And what's the problem with you doing it outside of class? It violates the test requirements. And remember, I intentionally want you to be under that kind of pressure environment of time because I'm training you for that eventual ACT essay or something else like it. I want you to feel that kind of pressure of having to write during a timed environment. And if Gabe walks in with 3 paragraphs already written, he's violated the spirit of the assignment. There are possible other problems with it too. Gabe. I have complete access to revision history, detailed revisions, keystroke by keystroke, so I know if you typed something or if you just copied and pasted it wholesale. That's why I'm saying portions. So for instance, Gabe, if you wrote your thesis statement and you copied and pasted it, I don't think I'd have a problem with that. It's entire paragraphs and big sections. But that's why I'm saying it's a balancing act, because it's kind of a gray area. If you're unsure, don't do it. Or ask me. Ethan.
So we have like a little sentence or something on our note sheet of Anne Frank we can copy.
That's fine, yes. Small portions. Another problem with you coming in with pre-written paragraphs, I don't know if you wrote it. You could have written it with a parent, you could have written it with a friend. I don't know if that's your original writing, and that's another reason I don't want you copying and pasting wholesale. Note the penalty, please. I'll take 50% off your grade if you're doing that. Write it during class. And after I go through this preparation, you'll realize that it's not that daunting a task. Daunting means fear-inspiring. You must begin and end in the allotted class time on Friday, May 10th. Yes?
Will it take the whole time?
For some of you, no. For some of you, yes. Depends upon your speed in writing and how much preparation you do. Tyler, if you just have to write during 45 minutes, you won't have a problem. If you have to write and think a lot, you might have a problem. That's why you want to do your thinking outside of class and then do your writing in class. I'm going to pause there for a moment because that is the end of the rules. Anybody have questions, further questions about any of those rules? No? Good. Then I shared this document with you, and down at the end of the document, I want you to scroll down all the way to the end of the document. The bottom, you can click right there underneath the rubric. Do a Control-Enter and make a new page. I should have written this, but I did not. So why don't you do it? Write essay here. So on the day of the test, or sorry, the day of the in-class essay, you will write your essay right below the document. You could scroll up to the instructions and the assignment. You'll have access to this assignment sheet. Not a problem. So you have everything you need to go right now. There's a slight problem, though. Scroll down to my model example. See where it says thesis and introduction and development, all of that. Did comments come through for you? No comments, right? I'm not quite sure why this happened. I don't think I've tried to doctopus an assignment out to you guys with comments before, but it seems that when I did that, remember all of you got your own separate copies? When it did that, the comments dropped. And somebody noted that to me during first period. Go to Moodle. Because of that, I just gave you a link to mine. And if you go to that link where it says Anne Frank in-class essay, it's under literature, pull that one up. This is the same thing, but it has the comments. Oh my gosh, hand. What's up?
It says I don't have permission to access.
You don't have permission. That's rude. Let me see if I can give you permission. Why not? Because I didn't click that. Oh, now you got it right. What is that? I'm not hallucinating, right? You're all seeing that? Look, there's a dinosaur, there's a kangaroo. Fire demon, I guess. That's crazy. Google's made an, oh, and then the number 6. Right next to a bull. That's nuts. All right, so now you're all on it? No? Refresh. Does anybody have any idea why your icons are pulling up as animals? What? Yeah, it's an anonymous duck, anonymous llama. So,
Then there's that guy.
and then there's Zach. See, Zach must have a Google. I mean, if you scroll all the way up, you'll see me, and it's not only me, but you'll also see my picture.
No, I'm not the hedgehog is that.
All right. Hey. Shh. Oh my gosh. Google does such a wonderful job of helping education. Now they've just killed it. Okay, I agree with you. That's the coolest thing I've seen all day. Probably will be the coolest thing I will see all day, but let's get past it. If you scroll down now, you should have access to the model example with comments. So do that, please. Scroll down to it. I want to make this essay as easy as possible for you, which means that I have given you a model example of a Mr. Crawler essay taken apart, step by step. Your first step is your thesis statement. Matthew, what's a thesis statement? That's a writing term, an essay term. Do you know what a thesis is? Anybody know what a thesis statement is? Wow, blank. Every once in a while, you uncover holes in your education. Yes? Yep, you're getting really close to it, Gabe. It does, in this one, it reveals the character's traits. But I mean, Jesse, in general, what's a thesis for any essay? Because not always is your essay a character essay. Explanation is a pretty general word. Let me put it this way. It's a main idea. What do we call the main idea of a paragraph? Speak up. Thank you, Alexis. A topic sentence. The main idea of an essay is called a thesis statement. So it provides the same function as a topic sentence. It captures your main idea. Look at mine. Mr. Crawler demonstrates compassion and selflessness throughout the play. That's the main idea of my essay. Brandon, which character am I focusing on? Mr. Crawler appears in that statement and must appear in that statement. Amanda, what am I saying about Mr. Crawler? Amanda, you continued to be distracted long after everybody else did. Joey, what am I saying about Mr. Crawler? Alyssa, what am I saying about Mr. Crawler? Very good. He demonstrates compassion and selflessness. In your thesis statement, and this is where you start, give me the character and then say something about them. Give their defining character trait or traits. Look at my comments. Mr. Crawler, this character leads the character leads the sentence. Start with your character. Then demonstrates. Use a powerful verb like reveals or changes or demonstrates. Then give the character traits clearly and use good words. The word good is not a good word. My statement was ironic. Use specific words that describe characters with precision. Don't say this character is nice. That is not a precise term. Use a word like generous. Use a word like selfless, compassionate. Don't say this person is mean. A good word is temperamental to describe Mr. Dussel. Temperamental means they have a temper. They easily fly off the handle. They have a low tolerance threshold. I've just told you how to write your thesis step by step. All you need to do is tailor that format to your character. The rest of this document does the same exact thing. It tells you how to write the introduction paragraph. It tells you how to write the 2 developing paragraphs, and then it tells you how to write the conclusion paragraph, and all of your comments here will take this apart and show you step by step. Writing this in-class essay should be simple because I've given you a model and a formula and an outline, basically, and all you need to do is replace that with the data from your character. So let's look at the introduction. I want to go through the entire thing so you can understand how to do it. Please feel free to ask me questions, interrupt me if anything seems unclear. Your introduction is paragraph 1. Bridget, where does the thesis fall in the introduction? Where is my thesis statement in that introduction? Very good. Thank you, Bridget. It is the last sentence, not the first. You think the main idea should be the first sentence. Not actually. An introduction paragraph means that you're introducing that main idea, but you're not there yet. In the Diary of Anne Frank, Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett tell the story of a group of Jews hiding from Nazi persecution. These 8 people hide in a secret annex of a warehouse and office building. They are helped by 2 generous non-Jews, Miep and Mr. Crawler. Mr. Crawler is a business associate of Mr. Frank who worked with Mr. Frank in that office. As the group hides, Mr. Crawler helps them with supplies and information. Throughout the play, Mr. Crawler demonstrates compassion and selflessness. Okay, so James, can you tell me something that I am doing in that introductory paragraph? Something that you think you should do in your introduction as well.
Telling how they're fighting, where they're fighting at.
Okay, that's true, but so what's the purpose of the information about them hiding? What am I trying to do in that paragraph? What do I need to do for my reader?
To tell them that they're hiding from the Nazis.
True, you're telling me what I'm saying in that introduction, but not clearly why I'm providing that information. Can somebody help James? Why am I providing that information about them hiding? Not necessarily interested, but just knowledgeable, right? At this point, Jesse, I'm not even going so far as trying to interest my reader. I'm just writing a fairly bland, straightforward essay. But if the reader doesn't know anything about Anne Frank, and I suddenly talk about Mr. Crawler, what's going to happen? The reader has never read Anne Frank, has no familiarity with Anne Frank at all, and I suddenly talk about Mr. Crawler. What's the problem? They'll be confused. So I need to establish some summary of the play. So James, you're right on what I'm saying, but the reason I'm saying it is to inform an ignorant reader about what's going on. So step 1 is to give a little summary of the play. And notice my summary is what, 2 sentences long, maybe? Katie, what's step 2 in my introduction? Step 1 is giving a summary of the play. What's step 2? That's step 3. There's something in between the 2. That's right, I introduced the character. Give me a summary of the play, then introduce your character, and then give me your thesis. 3 steps in your introduction. You follow those 3 steps, you're good. Each of those first 2 steps, probably 2 to 3 sentences apiece, and then your thesis is 1 sentence. By the way, notice that Katie answered my question just by looking at the comment that I posted on the document. That's why they're there. First developing paragraph, and I will just cover paragraph 2 here. I'm not going to go through both developing paragraphs. First, Mr. Crawler shows compassion for the Franks in Act 1, Scene 2. When Mrs. Frank seems distraught by the idea of obtaining food illegally, Mr. Crawler reassures her. He says, "This isn't the black market, Mrs. Frank. This is what we call the white market, helping all of the hundreds and hundreds who are hiding out in Amsterdam." In this same scene, he is unloading generous amounts of supplies, showing his concern for the Franks' welfare. These actions and others show Mr. Crawler's compassion. Kayla, how many pieces of evidence am I requiring per paragraph? Another way of asking that question is, how many pieces of evidence do I have in this paragraph? Two. Can you tell me what one of them is, Kayla? Okay, so my quotation, his verbal reassurance, is piece of evidence number 1. Robin, what's evidence number 2 in this paragraph? Right, so I'm saying that Crawler verbally reassures somebody, that shows compassion. And he also gives them supplies, that shows compassion. Those are two distinctly different pieces of evidence. Do they come in the same scene? Sure. Are they different pieces of action? Absolutely. Can somebody tell me how I distinguished between evidence 1 and evidence 2? There's something I did in writing here that helps the reader understand that I'm talking about two different pieces of evidence. Robin. And what's the transition phrase? This transition phrase in the same scene says, hey, guess what, reader? I'm about to give you evidence number 2, but it comes from the same scene. Can somebody scan through the next paragraph, the one that starts second, and tell me where that same transition phrase happens? Yeah, Brandon. In addition. Guys, it's formula. Essays like this and that ACT essay, by the way, if you take an ACT prep class, what they'll do is they'll tell you what the formula is, and then they'll just drill you on practicing the formula, because ACT essays are not creative writing, they're formula writing.
Can we also have like page numbers on that too?
Oh, page references like in parentheses?
Yeah, like after like an example or something.
You can. I decided I didn't want to add complexity to the grading rubric, so I'm not requiring you to give page numbers. But if you wish to give page numbers, you're welcome to. Okay. First paragraph is an introduction paragraph, or a topic sentence paragraph. Last paragraph is a conclusion paragraph, and you have evidence in between. Conclusion. A conclusion fulfills two tasks. Matthew, what's the first task of a conclusion paragraph? Restate the thesis in different words. So Mr. Crawler never stopped supporting the Franks, Van Dans, and Dussel. His actions show care and sacrifice. Matthew, can you tell me what I did to intentionally try to reword the thesis, how I didn't use the same words, but use words that were fairly synonymous? Oh, never stop supporting them. Right. That's additional information. You're correct, and I didn't see that in my thesis. Can somebody tell me also which synonym switch I made? Take a look at the thesis statement and then look at my conclusion. Robin. Thank you. Compassion and selflessness turn into care and sacrifice. Compassion and care are pretty much synonyms. Sacrifice and selflessness are fairly synonymous as well. Students that just copy and paste a thesis as a conclusion restatement are making a mistake. So notice that I've rewritten a little bit. Amanda, what's my second task in the conclusion paragraph? I'm sorry? Nope. The conclusion paragraph starts with a restatement of the thesis in different words, and then what does it do? Observe what about the character? Right. Tell me what's important about this character. Tell me why I just read this essay. If you can't support in some way why your reader just read the essay, then your reader will toss your essay aside and never let it affect them in the slightest bit. Good conclusions leave your reader realizing that, hey, I just read something mildly important. A person like Mr. Crawler is rare. And during the Holocaust, many more would have died without people like him. That one sentence tells me that Mr. Crawler's a pretty cool character because he's an image of that selfless helper during the Holocaust, the one that saved lives. And it's a good person to know in literature. It's a good way to have access to that historical fact. Isn't Margot important because she shows how compassion can be quiet, for instance? Because she's pretty quiet and reserved throughout the entire thing, right? But she's also compassionate and caring. Doesn't she provide support for that family?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she always tries to help out with the conflict between Anne and Mrs. Frank, and so she provides that support. But you don't notice it because she's so quiet. So perhaps the character of Margot teaches us a lesson like support and compassion doesn't always have to be outspoken. It can be quiet. Does that make sense? You can find a lesson, something valuable, something important about every single one of these characters. If you couldn't, they wouldn't be in the story. The rest of this document is your grading rubric. And you should see very clearly how I go from one point to the next. Every single point is accounted for. 24 points, by the way. It's a sizable portion. Your thesis, your introduction, your transitions, evidence amount, I want 2 per paragraph. Evidence quality, make sure it's clear and that it's relevant. Your conclusion paragraph, use effective words, write effective sentences, and then the other Muggs issues like capitalization and spelling and that sort of thing. Yes?
How much is this, let's say, worth? How many points?
24 points. Questions? Tomorrow, Mrs. Lemmerbrock will be here, but unfortunately I have yet another all-day committee assignment to fulfill, so this will be my second absence this week, to sit in a boardroom. With your group. You will have time to collect your notes and do some planning, and that way you will not have quite as much time outside of class to do that work, and you'll be able to help each other. So please use that time. Review the assignment, make sure you are working within the rules on which documents you are allowed to have with you and which you are not. Bring your books, look through the books, compile evidence. I think Ethan's evidence in his character group analysis document is excellent, but he can add more to it. So he's ready for tomorrow's group discussion work. And the rest of you need to be there as well. Any final questions on the assignment? Okay, as you have questions tomorrow, Mrs. Lemmerbrock will be here to help you. Log out and put them back, please.